Former CIA Director John Brennan is referred to the DOJ for prosecution. The president of Colombia appears to threaten President Trump, and Trump gets the green light to deploy the National Guard in Oregon. I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Tuesday, October 21st. This is Evening Wire. Former CIA Director John Brennan is facing possible criminal charges for allegedly lying to Congress about the Russia investigation. House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan announced today that he's referring Brennan to the Justice Department for prosecution, saying he knowingly made false statements during sworn testimony last year. The committee alleges that Brennan lied when he denied using the discredited Steele dossier in drafting the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment on Russian Interference. Jordan's referral follows the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey for similar charges.
President Trump's crackdown in the Caribbean ramps up again after Colombia's president suggested getting rid of President Trump. Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips has the latest.
The escalating rhetoric deepens an already massive rift between Washington and Bogota. In a fiery Univision interview, Colombian President Gustavo Petro said, quote, "Humanity has a first off-ramp. It is to choose to change Trump. If not, get rid of Trump," snapping his fingers for emphasis.
Puede ser por el mismo Trump. La más fácil. Si no, sácala a Trump.
Those remarks follow Trump's decision to slash U.S. subsidies to Colombia and raise tariffs, accusing Petro of overseeing, quote, massive drug production and calling him, quote, an illegal drug leader. Petro fired back, saying Colombia, quote, doesn't accept kings, while accusing the U.S. of, quote, murder following a strike that killed 3 people aboard what he claims was a civilian fishing vessel. U.S. lawmakers are now demanding the Trump administration take Petro's comments seriously, calling them a potential threat to security in the hemisphere.
A mass shooting at America's busiest airport was averted thanks to a tip from the suspect's family. Daily Wire reporter Zach Jewell has the story.
A 49-year-old man was arrested at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International on Monday after he allegedly threatened to, quote, shoot up the airport before he drove there armed with a semi-automatic rifle and 27 rounds of ammunition. Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens said at a press conference that the suspect is from nearby Cartersville, Georgia, and is, quote, mentally challenged. The suspect was identified as a convicted felon who said over a live stream video that he planned on shooting people at the airport. After his family members saw the video, they notified local police. Just 14 minutes after Atlanta police were notified of the threat, the suspect was arrested in the airport.
Millions of students will receive student loan forgiveness after all. For more, here's Daily Wire reporter Brecca Stoll.
After blocking the blanket forgiveness plans put forth by the Biden administration, President Trump agreed to reinstate debt forgiveness for some students, honoring the income-based repayment plan made at the time of the loan agreements. Following meetings with the American Federation of Teachers, the Trump administration reached a deal. To qualify for forgiveness, borrowers must be making continual payments on their loans along with other stipulations. Students may earn forgiveness after making continual payments for 20 to 25 years, contingent on income.
The Trump administration's crime crackdown in Memphis has led to the arrest of serious illegal immigrant criminals. Daily Wire immigration reporter Jean-Pierre reports.
The Daily Wire has learned that gang members, pedophiles, rapists, domestic abusers, and drug traffickers have all been taken off the streets by ICE agents deployed by Trump to Memphis in recent weeks. Assistant Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told the Daily Wire, quote, Memphis has suffered from historic levels of violent crime, including a murder rate that is 4 times higher than Mexico City. No American should be afraid to walk down the streets in their own neighborhoods.
President Trump can now deploy the Oregon National Guard within the state as anti-ICE protests continue. Daily Wire political reporter Cameron Arcand has the latest.
The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled yesterday that the administration has the authority to send the Guard to protect federal agents in an ICE facility amid protests. In a 2-1 decision, the majority wrote that the president, quote, lawfully exercised his statutory authority in federalizing the National Guard, pending further review. The president is still prohibited from deploying the Texas National Guard to the Beaver State.
U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jeanine Pirro announced charges for 2 teenagers related to the attack on a DOJ staffer known as Big Balls. Federal prosecutors have charged 19-year-old Lawrence Cotton Powell and 18-year-old Anthony Taylor with robbery, assault, and carjacking in connection with the attack. Pirro said that both defendants, despite their young ages, have lengthy criminal histories with little accountability.
2 young men were brutally assaulted and stomped, highlighting the need for accountability among young offenders in the district. This case underscores the escalating challenges that we face in confronting crime in Washington, D.C.
Pirro and President Trump have called for stricter penalties against youth in D.C. as crime has exploded among the capital's teens.
Federal prosecutors in the case against former FBI Director James Comey signaled they may seek the removal of his lead defense attorney, citing a potential conflict of interest. Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce has the details.
Prosecutors allege that Patrick Fitzgerald, a longtime friend and colleague of Comey, may have been involved in the alleged disclosure of classified information after Comey's dismissal by President Trump in 2017. Comey's defense team disputes the claim, arguing the materials in question were not technically classified at the time, and that neither Comey nor his attorneys provided any of the information to members of the media. The defense continues to seek dismissal of the case, calling it vindictive prosecution.
With just 2 weeks remaining before the New York City mayoral election, Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa has made it clear that he will under no circumstance drop out of the race.
Now in this last minute, there's this push to get me to drop out. I was trained as a young boy, like many of you, that it's one person, one vote. But the billionaires end up picking who's going to be your mayor, and the political elite will make that determination. I trust the people.
Sliwa's defiant stance follows mounting pressure from across the political spectrum, urging him to step aside and consolidate support behind former Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's seen as the only viable challenger to Democratic Socialist frontrunner Zoran Mamdani. Recent polling shows the Republican with less than 20% of the vote, with some showing Cuomo within striking distance if Sliwa pulls out.
Meanwhile, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has refused to endorse Mamdani for mayor, at least so far. Jeffries has been asked multiple times about backing Mamdani during the campaign, including this week on ABC. Here's what he said.
I expect to have a conversation with him at some point this week, and we'll certainly have more to say about the mayor's race and about our Democratic nominee prior to early voting beginning.
When asked earlier this year, Jeffries called on the Democratic Socialist to, quote, clarify his position on Israel.
Globalizing the Intifada, by way of example, is not an acceptable phrase. And with respect to the Jewish communities that I represent, I think our nominee is going to have to convince folks that he is prepared to aggressively address the rise in anti-Semitism in the city of New York, which has been an unacceptable development.
The war in Ukraine continues to redefine the nature of modern combat, as for the first time in history, Russian soldiers have reportedly surrendered to an unmanned Ukrainian robot. Daily Wire senior editor Joel Needler has more.
While unmanned aerial drones have been used at an unprecedented scale, this latest incident marks the first tactical surrender to a land-based unmanned vehicle. The so-called robot was a small remotely operated wheeled vehicle carrying about 138 pounds of explosives. According to reports, it approached a Russian defensive position that had been held for weeks, prompting the soldiers to surrender. Ukrainian officials say the machine cost roughly $1,500 to construct, with some models designed to carry explosives and others outfitted with mounted machine guns.
Media conglomerate Warner Brothers Discovery announced it is open to being purchased. The company, which owns CNN and HBO, announced earlier this year that it planned to separate the movie and streaming segments of its business from the sports and news programming. While that plan is still in motion, CEO David Zaslav has said that the company is open to a variety of either purchase or merger options. Shares of the company jumped 10% this morning following the news.
Former Biden press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is still playing defense for her former boss, at least somewhat. During an appearance last night on Colbert, Jean-Pierre said she saw Biden daily as capable of governing. Even when the late-night host, once a strong Biden backer, pressed Jean-Pierre, she pushed back. Here's some of their exchange.
The man that I saw nearly every day was someone who was engaging, understood policy, and was always putting the American people first. And it showed in what we were able to get done. I remember I saw him nearly every day. I don't think anybody questioned
his heart or his policies, but it takes more than that to be the president of the United States. And in a moment of great pressure on stage, we saw someone shock us and worry us And nothing could assuage that worry. So I don't think it was necessarily a betrayal of Joe Biden as other people saying, we don't think we were shown the Joe Biden that you saw.
The left-wing host ended the exchange by thanking her for coming, but made clear the debate over Biden's fitness isn't over.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt made headlines this week with a 3-word response to a HuffPost reporter. Daily Wire senior editor Virginia Kruta has more.
The HuffPost reporter S.V. Date was looking for a comment about who'd suggested the location for President Trump's upcoming meeting with Russia's Vladimir Putin. The meeting is planned to take place in Budapest, Hungary. Date asked about who chose that location, citing concern that Russia had previously promised not to invade Ukraine in that very city, way back in 1994. The reporter published Leavitt's response. She wrote, quote, "Your mom did." Conservative commentator Steve Guest responded to the article saying, "Congratulations to HuffPost for eliciting the most legendary response from the White House."
And law enforcement agencies across the country are warning about a viral prank that convinces people someone has broken into their home. The trend, known as the AI homeless man prank, involves sending homeowners AI-generated images of their homes with a stranger digitally inserted inside. While often intended as a joke, the prank has triggered numerous false police reports and emergency calls, prompting official warnings. At least 2 juveniles in Ohio have reportedly been charged in connection with the prank trend.
Those are your drive home updates this evening. To learn more about these stories, go to dailywire.com. And in case you missed it earlier today, we covered some major stories, including President Trump locking in a critical deal with Australia as he presses on several foreign policy fronts, the administration ramping up the Caribbean war on drugs, and a Christian couple losing their foster care license over gender theory. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another full edition of Morning Wire.